the North Face Move Mountains Filmmakers Grant program is designed to address the inequity of women directors in both the production and outdoor industries. Female directors accounted for only 8% of the top 250 grossing films of 2018. That's actually down 3% from 2017, so now more than ever, representation matters. I'm about to introduce our 4 grantees who have received both production dollars and a mentorship community to help each of them share a story that reflects their unique expression of the explorer's mindset and represents themes that are important to the North Face brand. We will also introduce our powerhouse mentorship team, who will guide our filmmakers through each stage of the process, offering insight, advice, and collaboration to ensure these filmmakers leave the program with a deep understanding of the storytelling process and can do so with honesty, integrity, and style. So without further ado, and I apologize if I butcher your names in advance, I will introduce first our mentors and then our grantees. I made no cards. Yeah. Yeah, give me 1 second. So for our mentors, why don't we first have Barbara KOPPLE, 2-time Academy Award-winning filmmaker, followed by Eloise King, award-winning director and former vice executive producer, and finally Taylor REES, documentary filmmaker and environmentalist. Yeah, just sit wherever you want. We're good. Next up, we have our filmmakers. Sana Malik, her film project is Away Together. MARIE-LOUISE, I'm super sorry in advance. MARIE-LOUISE NKASHAMA. Her film project is The Traveler Comes Home. We have Abby Fuller. Her project is Kuyama Lamb. Yay! And Monica GUERRA. Her film project is Women of the Land. All right. Seeing this come together has been the honor of a lifetime. So without further ado, let's get the party started. Why don't we start with our mentors? Why don't each of you quickly talk about a project you're most proud of? Go ahead.
Me? Yeah. Hi, this is Sana. Can you hear me?
I'm gonna pop the.
Hello? Okay, got it. For a sound person, that's not very good. Anyway, I'm Barbara KOPPLE, and I think the project I'm most proud of is one of the first that I ever did. It was a film called Harlan County, USA. It was a film about coal miners in eastern Kentucky. I learned what life and death was all about. I lived in the community. At first they thought we were outsiders, but then we became very much insiders, and it was one of the most incredible experiences. I didn't think I ever wanted to leave. And so that was the one I'm most proud of.
I guess mine, I'm going to use like role rather than like an individual project. So I rebranded like about 3 years ago. I rebranded like ID Video as part of Vice. And for me, I think it's the thing I'm most proud of because fashion film was doing something very particular. And what I hoped to do, and like I really felt like kind of was achieved, made like hundreds of hours of films. It was basically giving a platform to like artists and curators and creators all around the world, really, to tell stories that like had depth and meaning, that we gave like energy and resources to look beautiful, but also to hopefully like shift a landscape in which, you know, new authors were coming to the fore and able to tell stories that really mattered. So it was like all around the world with like LGBTQI community, women specifically, and like fusing like rights and social justice with music and fashion and art and culture in a way that I felt was like really exciting. So it's like a real privilege to do that. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Taylor REES, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. Something I'm working on right now that I'm really excited about. I've been invited to live with and support and document the Licanantay communities of Chile and Argentina, where a large majority of the lithium resources are coming out of for electric vehicles. And I actually bought an electric car a couple years ago, thinking like, wow, in this like very complicated state of climate change that we're living in, it was like an easy solution. And I've quickly realized that I think a lot of our easiest solutions to climate change are often only sustainable for us and not the planet. So like really excited to work through the process of this film, to bring up some of the social justice implications of our environmental movement, and that'll be coming out in about a year.
Awesome, thank you guys so much. Next up, we're going to have our filmmakers sort of do an elevator pitch for each of your film projects. Just a quick overview, and why don't we start down at the end?
Hi, my name is Monica.
Okay.
My name is Monica Guerra. I'm a Mexican-born and raised filmmaker. I moved 10 years ago to San Francisco to pursue a film career where I have a little production company, Collective Theory. And my film is called Women of the Land. It tells the story of a group of women in rural Coahuila, a northern state in Mexico. That's the home of the golden eagle. The golden eagle is in our shield, is in our legends, is in our flag. It's really important for us as a culture, and unfortunately it's endangered. So this group of women were inspired by their kids to form a group of field researchers and advocates to get the education and the resources to protect this species and to explore a world that is male dominated in Mexico in such a culture, a very macho culture, and about them taking the initiative to help their land and their community.
Hello, my name's Abby. It's really exciting to be here because it's not often that once you get into a certain stage in your career that you have the time and space and the support to be able to actually pursue something that's in your own heart. Oftentimes you're executing other people's desires, and so thank you to the North Face for creating this, first of all, this space and this opportunity to do so and do it in a way with people supporting you. My film speaks to a kind of a personal experience. I moved from Los Angeles to a regenerative farm, 1,500-acre farm in Virginia, where we're working on soil health and basically mimicking nature in agriculture. And I'm telling the story of a woman who's a very fearless and passionate grazer who is raising sheep and restoring and regenerating grasslands in Santa Barbara County in the central coast of California. And her story is a very personal one. Many of us, and it speaks to what Taylor was speaking to as well, in a changing climate, a changing world, there's often this sense of powerlessness in figuring out what decisions we can make personally and with our communities. And her story speaks to one of what to do with that powerlessness. And it's her very personal journey of going from a place of deep disconnection and loss and finding a way to heal herself and her wounds and her community through agriculture and through grazing.
Hello, my name is MARIE-LOUISE KASHAMA. I'm a film student and a climber, and my project is an exploration of self. So I'm going to travel to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where my family is culturally from, and go to a city where my dad grew up, Lubumbashi, and essentially capture the daily life told by the people who are from there culturally. And also talk a bit about what it feels like going home to a place that isn't necessarily home for me, because I am first generation American. So exploring that, getting to give the people of the Congo an opportunity to tell their own stories, I think is what I aim to do, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. So.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Sana Malik, and I'm a journalist and filmmaker. And I've mostly told stories about immigration and home and belonging. I also run a media site called This Is World Town, which is for women of color visual storytellers, supports them launch their careers. And my film is called Away Together. It's actually my first foray into narrative. It's about a young newcomer girl who has grown up as a refugee without being stateless, essentially growing up in refugee camps, and also spending some time in contained spaces and detention, who enters the outdoors for the very first time and goes on her first camping trip, and what that evokes for her, and kind of, it's a story about home and belonging and memory, and connecting to a memory that you've never really known, but having a sense of knowing that you're from a place that could be similar. So her story is that she comes from kind of a dry mountainous region and goes camping in a dry mountainous region in a totally different part of the world. So what feelings that evokes for her. So I'm really excited to be here and to be able to do that story and have the support to do that.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a series of questions addressed to each of our mentors and grantees. We'll keep this pretty conversational, but why don't we start with one for Monica and Sana. What excited or attracted you to this opportunity? And what has been your biggest challenge when it comes to getting your own film projects and ideas off the ground? Why don't you have
Okay. I think for women, you have to work twice as hard as male directors to get the same opportunities. And there's currently a fair amount of conversation around gender and race equality, but words only get you so far. So it was great that the Northwest created this initiative to support women, not only financially, but also to give mentorship from inspiring filmmakers and continuity, exposure, and just to continue to build community. I think it's amazing, and I'm so excited to be able to share my point of view, to have creative control, and to have guidance throughout this process. I'm excited to share my view on my country and to show the audiences a little part of my culture.
So I think for me, I've started in filmmaking a little bit later. I came from a different career, but always was passionate about storytelling and always found opportunities to kind of teach myself and learn, follow people who are doing the right things, ask questions, and get over that fear of asking for help, which I think a lot of women struggle with, and feeling like, okay, you have to figure this out on your own, which is still something I struggle with and think that I always have to do this. So I always took these incremental steps. I got the right skills, I went and got the credentials I needed. I worked for the right institutions, but I never felt that anyone wanted to invest in me. And I think, and that doesn't just mean in financial investment, it means support and mentorship. And I always struggled with that because I was like, what am I doing that's not getting me to the place that I want to be, or that I'm not able to do the projects that I care about. And that's obviously a lifelong thing, but I think the biggest thing was just, how do I just get someone to maybe support and invest? And I applied for this really as an exercise of like, let me just come up with, or build the idea that I want to do, put it out there, and see what happens. I really have no expectations for this, but getting that positive response was just like, wow, okay, I think I asked the universe for some investment and I'm getting it in some way. So that was phenomenal.
And now you're here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Question 2 is targeted to Eloise and Abby. What are the risks of not including diverse perspectives in storytelling?
Well, I guess the risk is that we're like all really ill-informed. Like what we have at the moment is a canon that exists in which so many important voices and perspectives have been excluded. So if you think about what we stand to gain, there's so much that we all, it's a collective thing. It's not just about those voices that are missing. It's not their responsibility as like women or people of color or LGBTQI groups. It's about like our collective investment in culture and how we move, how we move forward together and how we like problem solve, but also how we recognize one another's existence as equally important. And so I think, for me, like representation is really about like what we all stand to gain, and how we shift those power dynamics to keep evolving, how we make film together in powerful, motivating and affirming ways.
I would say there's 3 pieces to that I can think of. The first is that talent is not attached to gender or race. So by continuing to have an elitist club, we're literally, as a society and as a culture and as a world, just missing out on some of the best stories that are out there by not allowing every storyteller the opportunity to have the same platform or to have their voice heard or have that investment in their work. The second piece I see is empathy. As a documentary filmmaker, that's always the first and last thing that I'm hoping to achieve, is to really allow somebody to think about things in a new way, to walk in somebody else's shoes and to feel an emotional connection, something that feels intimate. And when we create empathy, this kind of narrative of us versus them can disappear, because we suddenly feel like this, we recognize something of ourselves in somebody else who may look or seem different. So by not allowing those stories to be told, we're really just kind of eliminating the ability for more connection and empathy to take root in our culture and our society. And then I had one more thing and I forgot what it was. Wait, what was the question again?
What are the risks? Oh, let me back up. What are the risks of not including diverse perspectives in storytelling?
Yeah. I'll get back to you on that if I can remember it. But the first two are both really relevant.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Both of you made excellent points. And we're happy to come back if you think of it later on.
Thank you.
Okay. Question number 3 is for Marie-Louise and Taylor. What initially drew you to documentary filmmaking, and why do you think it's important to tell people's personal stories?
So what drew me to documentary filmmaking was initially a search for connection. And I just enjoyed the process of documentary filmmaking more because, you know, depending on what you're covering or who you're covering, you know, you don't just stop, you know, contacting them after the documentary. You could potentially, you know, create friendships, and then connecting the people that you're covering with other people is also another important part. So I just kind of felt more comfortable in that process, working with other people and just sharing other people's stories. And why I think it's important to share people's stories is because that's essentially the core where we get all of our stories, whether they're, you know, narrative or animated. I mean, a lot of what we create is based off of actual experiences. And so I think personally, like, documentary is sort of the core of that, and then you can evolve and move off from people's actual stories. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, telling other people's stories. I think ultimately as humans, we all want to be heard, and we're living in an era where it's really harder than ever to like deeply listen. There's no shortage of information to tune into on our phones, on the news. And so the role that like documentary plays in that, I think, is that it teaches us to listen to real people's lives, and that is so important for our own souls and our own happiness as human beings to really learn how to listen to each other, as well as to more deeply understand, especially in the context of environmental or social, social cause docs or issues. Yeah, just like being able to have a platform to learn about that. And there's more documentaries being made now than ever before. I think it's easier than ever before to create them. There's more platforms than ever before than to learn from them. It's a really good learning space. And it's about telling other people's stories, and also about creating a community where people can also tell their own stories and do that together.
Yeah, thank you. This question is for Barbara. What experiences in your life have led you to documentaries, and what has kept you passionate about them throughout your career?
Well, first of all, I want to say that being here today with all these incredible filmmakers is what keeps me passionate about making documentaries. When I first started, you were on your own, and people would say, oh, what does a little girl like you want to do making films like this? And this morning, we all sat around a table and we really talked to each other. And knowing that people have each other's backs and want each other to succeed is sort of the heartfelt moment for me. And I'm just so pleased to meet all of you and hope all of you will stay in my life and I in yours, and that we can always continue to help each other. I started a little while ago making films, and the way that I started was, I spoke about this a little this morning, was in university. I was studying clinical psychology, and you had to work 6 months in the field that you were studying, and I was studying clinical psychology, and so I worked at Medfield State Hospital, and I saw many people who had had lobotomies, and I thought, I could never write what these people are going through. I want to know what their lives are. I want to know who they are as people before this happened. What are their families like? So I made a little movie about it, and I handed that in as my thesis, which my professor was not happy about at all. And just going up through the ropes of making documentaries, I am forever passionate. Whenever I start a new film, it's like starting over again. It's for the very first time, and there's such excitement. I mean, if somebody calls me up and said, how would you like to make a film about Woody Allen and his jazz band? I would jump at it, or Miss Sharon Jones, or film on Desert One, or so many different things. It means entering into so many different lives, telling so many stories, and I've gone to so many different places that were very dangerous, South Sudan, and saw some of the most beautiful things happen. In South Sudan, a lot of the women went from north to south to get away from the Arab masters, and they came, and there was so much hope in their eyes, and we went and we filmed, and we brought this extraordinary woman, Ellen Ratner, who was going to, help them, because a lot of people had polio, and she used bicycles to make wheelchairs, and Kate Taylor, who's James Taylor's sister, and a great singer, and she taught them to bead, and they make these little heart necklaces that they could sell. I mean, it's just extraordinary, and they sang songs back and forth to each other. There was so much hope. I've been all over the world. I've been to, Cambodia, Phnom Penh, filming different people and situations, and I'm also a very American storyteller, so the passion grows each time I feel blessed and lucky enough to make a new film. I'm ecstatically happy. I mean, happy enough that after I'm off the phone with somebody knowing I'm really gonna do it, I jump up and down, so the passion never goes away.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. We're actually making really good time. So why don't each of our grantees, what is one thing you want to take away from this experience? What's your biggest hope?
I think my biggest hope and what I'm most excited about is community. I'm excited to know other filmmakers, and it's just great. I mean, just from the beginning of this experience, I can already feel that it's going to be women supporting women and lifting each other. So I'm really excited to experience that. It's something that I haven't encountered that much before. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think we're taught, even when I first went to film school, the notion, even from everyone in my community before I went to the film school, and then even in film school, was that this is such a tough industry to make it, and it's oversaturated, and it's competitive, and there's almost a mentality that you're like pinned up against people, and like not everyone's gonna get to the top. And I've seen kind of that energetically in Hollywood and in the film entertainment industry. And I think that communities like this, where you're actually helping each other, supporting each other, collaborating, rooting for everyone to rise, is the type of environment that really at this point in my life I don't want to be in any other one. Like, I just don't have the tolerance for it. So I'm really grateful, and that's really the takeaway. And I remembered my third thing from before. The third thing was the idea of, if you remember the other question, was about what we'd be missing out on. And I think there's a responsibility in storytelling that, because there's this, I believe in this idea that you can't be what you don't see. And so by showing stories of different types of people with different points of view, leading different lives, we're allowing for the inspiration, we're allowing for role models, and we're allowing for so much more growth and potential from the people who see those stories. So that's another thing we'd miss out on.
Thank you.
I hope to learn to continue to be vulnerable. I've had, you know, a difficult time with doing that. Going to film school, it seems like everyone just, you know, is trying to prove something, and for a long time I was afraid to say that I didn't have anything to prove. This was just who I was. And also, you know, growing up, my experience, it was a lot about, you know, trying to fit in and be as American as possible, when that's only, you know, half of my story, I would say. And so, you know, I want to be more vulnerable, not only in my life, but in my work as well. Whenever I was doing the application, I was like sitting at a coffee shop, and then like all of a sudden I just started crying. And I was like, okay, this is a new feeling, but it was in that moment that I, you know, regardless of the end result, that I had really liked the story that I created. And so I want to continue kind of going down that path of, yeah.
I mean, I'll add to that community element, because I definitely feel like that is such a core part of how I want to work as well, is always having I was saying that this morning to Eloise, of there needs to be some element of community in everything I do at this stage. But beyond that, I think it's this notion of belief. Like, there are all these people who believe in you to do this, and I'm personally terrified because this is a new challenge for me. I've never done narrative, but I'm so ready to push myself and go for it and just expand in whatever way I can, because I know that there's all these people who believe I can do it. Don't doubt it for a second. So I need to get over that doubt.
Amazing. I guess on a personal note, my path to the production industry has not been linear. I worked quite a bit in the outdoor industry prior to making outdoor industry related films. But I guess I had just sort of come to accept that both the outdoor and the production spaces would be male dominated. I stopped questioning it, because at a certain point, why fight the fight, you know? But in the last couple of years, to see the voices rise up and to see that narrative flip on its head has been crazy. We obviously have a lot of work left to be done, but just the empowerment and the voices and the ability to tell the stories you want to tell in the way you want to tell them has been really inspiring. Just being on stage with all of you has got me really jazzed up. Okay, well, I guess before we take some questions from the audience, let's ask our mentors. Can you shed, you know, one piece of advice on our filmmakers for this process? Why don't you go ahead and start?
Oh geez.
No pressure.
Yeah, well, we're staying in a cabin together, so this whole weekend is really about just sharing with each other, learning from each other. Since we're sitting here in a larger audience, communicating that outward, I guess off the spot, maybe my advice would be that you know, it's often really challenging to articulate your ideas in different contexts, on social media, if that's a platform where you share, on film grants, to coworkers, and like film festival spaces, especially like this one, Women Under the Influence, is also a really good opportunity to do that. And I think that you know, connecting with other people you might meet here in the audience, I think that's what we're all here to do as well. I imagine you guys are all coming here for different reasons, but to really celebrate the fact that we're here for a short amount of time and that these are some of the spaces of highest potential for friendship and collaboration is a really worthwhile thing to seize.
I guess I'll start from sort of what would I think is the best piece of advice. I guess when I was 14, I decided that I wanted to be a producer, and I told my teacher at school, she said, it's really competitive, maybe you should think of something else. And for me, like, I grew up in a really like matriarchal family, and my grandmother was, you know, an educator and had run Saturday schools and was really implementing, you know, like community activism, and she was like outraged. And like from that point, I think I have really, and have since, always had a really quiet, probably determination that's not in relation to anyone else. There's always been like, well, if it is hard, like, why not me? And so I think the question you should always, I mean, continue to ask yourself is like, there is space, like, and why could there not be space for me? And to let that propel you to really push, because people will say no. And I think the people who say no, you have to circumnavigate, and you have to be really determined and really prepared to do that, but also, you know, really finding those people who like are your tribe, who will say yes, who believe in exactly what you do, which is why not me, why not us? And I think that for me ultimately would be kind of like the all-encompassing message is to like build community, find people who want to work with you with the ethics that you believe in working in. Because the beauty really is in the process. Like, making films is the same every time. It's fucking hard. It's always just as hard. And so if you don't believe in it, and if you don't have those right people around you, it's only going to make it harder. And, you know, it really drains something of you each time. So I think always ask, like, you know, why not me? And why not us? And work really hard to justify that to no one else but yourself. So do your research and make sure you're backed up and make sure you feel confident enough in yourself that when you ask that question, you kind of know that the answer, you know, is reflected back at you with a sense of confidence.
My advice. We have such a wonderful, marvelous world to explore and to do things in that I couldn't imagine not all of us just struggling to pursue it. And for me, I don't believe in the word no. No to me means yes, of course. You know, when people tell me, no, you can't do this, I'll say, of course I can do it, and this is how I can do it. And I think also putting a great team together of a great DP, a fantastic editor, people that you really trust and you communicate with is very important. And to always just be there. Be the first one there, the last one to leave. Don't think that anyone can ever stop you. I think if someone tries to, it's because they're jealous or something is happening with them. That should make you work even more. And you've got a whole community and a whole team of people that if you speak about the projects that you want to do, there's so many people that will stand up and will help you. And you should just never forget that for a moment.
Oh, so good. I guess before we start maybe taking questions from the audience, is there anything that anyone on this stage wants to add or say or conversate about?
I think all of your projects are so interesting and so amazing. And this morning, being let into that world that you're thinking of has made me very excited. And so I just want to say, I wish you all so well and hope that, you know, whatever part of it you want all of us to be in, that you'll open the door and we'll come running. So.
Anybody else? No?
Yeah, I just have one thought actually.
Yeah.
I guess, so these things are always really beautiful, really like affirming and really warm, but I think we also have to recognize them for the like really important acts of intervention that they are. And often there's so much like sort of, you know, just spoken into the ether about like caring about diversity or uplifting the voices of women. And I think we really, you know, just as you've risen to the challenge here by like putting your money where your mouth is, which is often like the biggest challenge we face, like fiscally to remain within the industry, but then also providing those additional layers, which is like, if people are from, you know, diverse or I guess the not dominant mainstream like characteristic of that industry, you know, skills sometimes and resources have been in short supply. So I think the challenge is to like push other people to recognize where those gaps are and like not just be enough to like create a panel where they talk about it, but where they like take decisive action. So I really like, you know, I guess take my hat off to the initiative for what it is, which is like an end-to-end project where there is that investment in time, in money, in care, in platform. You know, the future of this hopefully is that we all recognize that nothing is going to change by just seeing pictures and liking them and representation. There needs to be like action, and I think talking has played such a big role. But I'm excited to see that it's very much about that action phase, and that like we can, you know, all, including the audience, be like real allies for change. Because I think, you know, it's not, we don't have any more time. It's like now. It's not later, and I think we have to remember to like really fight for that. You know, it's not something that's going to be given to us. It's something that we're going to take. Yeah.
Right on.
And I guess in that same vein, I want to quickly recognize the person that made this possible. The North Face has never done anything like this. There's not really anything like this in the outdoor industry. And she fought for this every step of the way, and without her, none of us would be here. So Rachel Gray, thank you so much. We have such an amazing team. We've all worked on this for a really long time. We have Nicole and Sam and Rob, our lone male in the back there. But we're excited about the next year. You know, if this goes well, and I have a sneaking suspicion that it will, we're going to continue to do this, and maybe that opens doors for other brands to continue to do this, because if there's one entity in this world that has money, it's companies. So let's just take what we can get, right? Great, so I mean, without further ado, does anybody have any questions? Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Where will these films live once it's all done? How do you guys plan on taking it out to the world?
That's a great question. So there's two parts to that. The first is we have a relationship with Mountain Film. Is that still accurate? Yeah. Where they'll go through the formal vetting process through like the film festival submission. But if they are made in, we'll do a showcase. And then ultimately they will live on the North Face social channels. And there'll be a whole campaign behind that push as well. And then ultimately, it's also, you know, in the filmmaker's best interest to give these all the legs that they can. So wherever they go beyond that, we'll see. Anybody else? Yeah, totally.
Anyone wants to kind of help us with distribution and talking through that, you're welcome, because that's definitely, I think, something that all of us would intend to do.
Yeah, go ahead.
What phase of production are each of you in?
As far as I know, the very beginning. Why don't you guys speak to that?
Yeah, the beginning. I submitted the application, and with that, we had to do a treatment, and high-level treatment. So, you know, through the application process, I have the whole story done. It's just a matter of doing it, and I plan to shoot it in December, January of this year. So, yeah.
Yeah, very early is the question, the answer.
That was actually our hope as part of the premise of this grant, is these mentors could really play pivotal roles in crafting the stories. Obviously, they know what they want to say, but it never hurts to get another set of eyes. So it's pretty early, pretty fresh, and it'll really be able to be molded to what everyone collaborates together on. Anybody else? Oh, sorry, 1 second. Go ahead, in the back.
This is open to whoever is open to answering, but do you find yourselves taking into consideration hiring women on your teams as well, or does this happen kind of organically? Just
100% now that I feel like I'm in that position to make that decision of who works below the line. I'm very committed to hiring a female DP, female editor, because those are lenses that are very important, especially from a female perspective. And you're right, we don't see enough of that. And I think that also means that I might take a chance on someone. So even, you know, if I trust their ability, but maybe they haven't done exactly what the type of work that I've seen or need, but I trust that I can work well with them and they're committed to it, I will take that risk because I'm really committed to working with women.
Yeah, I almost exclusively work with my DP. Her name is Chloe Weber, and she's a beast. And I intend to bring her on this project if she'll work within this budget. And yeah, I love collaborating with women. There was one project that I got to do last year where literally everyone on the production team was a woman, and I had an amazing experience. So obviously, you know, it's always the person who's the best for the role, but I tend to have gotten the opportunity to work with a lot of women in crew positions, and I feel like there's also just there's a common bond too, because we know similar experiences, and you know, that brings a lot into that, like that relationship of working long days together and really having each other's back.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say that I guess as a black female filmmaker, one of the things that I've tried to be really wary of is like creating maybe like new monopolies, and I think given like the intersection of like how I exist in the world, like actually I have really mixed crews, and it's been about like breaking all men environments. But equally, I've got to be honest, like I wouldn't be comfortable having like an all-white female crew, but it sometimes happens because of the way that the numbers shift in terms of like representation, and the way in which I've been able to work in a way that's really comfortable for me has been to like look across the board at like, you know, female, non-binary, like different voices that are going to reflect the experiences of the people who are not only on my set, but like making the people who we're making films with comfortable as well. So I think for me it's about like kind of looking at that as a 360, like what do I think the future is in the future? You know, to some iteration is definitely female, but it's actually one that's much more inclusive, and it's not repetitive of, you know, the hierarchy of like gender that's existed, but one that like in which the fluidity of like how we make work means that people just aren't locked out.
That's actually a really good point. Like, how do you find the balance between the best person for the role versus, you know, checking various boxes, so to speak? So it's interesting. Obviously, is that something that you try to be mindful of in the process, or?
You have to just think really differently. As someone who's in a position of hiring like lots of people, one of the things I recognize about how people get like locked out and like confidence is measured in a particular way is that we have this idea that people have to be really outspoken in a way that like men typically have been, or they have to present in a certain way, and actually it's about doing the work to see the ways in which skills present themselves in more nuanced sort of circumstances. And yeah, of course that takes more work from you as a director. When you're a female director particularly, there's a lot of pressure around like performance and delivery. So what you want to do is to get the best possible like outcome, because you don't want to take a risk that this one shot you have, which is the problem in and of itself, is that it presents itself as one opportunity, means that you can't kind of work in the way that you would like, which is you can't give the step up and you can't give the ladder up to the people who work with you. But I think invariably what happens is you want to work with someone who you think is going to deliver a great job, and that has to always be first and foremost. And actually, if we really look at the relationships we have with people around us, our peers are going to be the people who will like work with us continually on jobs going forwards, and there has to be a new generation. You can't always just pick the person who like won the Oscar to work with, because they're going to be inundated. It's about like how you craft like the future of your own film career, and some of that is being the person who, you know, vouches for someone else, just in the way that one hopes, you know, people as here will vouch for you. And so, you know, we also take responsibility, because once we get power, you know, we have to do the same that we're asking people to do for us. It's not always easy.
No, that's great. Thank you. Were you going to say something?
Oh yeah, it's just I had some interesting experiences lately as a female director. I've also been hired to do commercials where I'll get this offer from a company that's like, hey, you know, we've got this project, but you know, it's about this woman, or it's about this like nonprofit issue, and so, and we love that you're a female, and you know that you like to work with female crews. So it's really a charity, and our budget's really small, and I've had a range of experiences pushing back on that, and some have been successful, and some have not. Sometimes I've been like, you know, well, this is amazing, this is great, I love what you guys are doing. You know, but I need to pay my crew, whether they're men and women of all different colors, genders, everything, good rates. And like, I think that's a part of it, and really demanding from clients and companies that it's not just about telling the stories and what they're including in their branded docs or their commercials, but about how they're supporting crews financially, which is a little bit of what we've been talking about. And I have the privy of like working with my husband, who is a very celebrated male DP, and so I know exactly what people get paid, and it's pretty crazy how often for the exact same role, for the same level of talent, those rates can be really different. So, you know, if you're working in crew, if you're managing, to continue to just like be very aware of what standard rates are, and really make sure that women and women-centered stories or any kind of marginalized groups' stories aren't getting lower rates. That seems ridiculous.
Amen, girl. Amen. You had a question.
Yeah, you guys actually like mostly touched on it, but as a documentary filmmaker who's come from like human rights and advocacy, what I see, and who's also an outdoors woman, what I see mostly is the holy trinity of creative, and it's so amazing that North Face is doing this, is the DP, the editor, director, even if it's on women's voices, are all male voices. And I would just planting a seed for future stuff. It'd be amazing to see the outdoor industry start to do something like Free the Bid, where that holy trinity, one of those people is a woman.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it's about a white male subject.
Oh, totally.
To have that female
Yeah.
lens is just, that's expanding the female gaze.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, as a producer in the outdoor industry specifically, I am often tasked with crewing out these projects, and in some cases, there's a safety issue to take into consideration, right? Can they climb the mountain? Can they, because that's the thing about outdoor cinematographers, is they have to work twice as hard as the athletes themselves just to keep up. So I think at least, and this is something I talked to Rachel about from day one, is one thing we're hoping to foster with this program in particular is opening the door to find more female voices in a variety of skill sets that can work in the outdoor space and speak the outdoor language. I know they're out there, I just need to meet them. And as soon as we know who they are, we can absolutely arm them with the tools that they need. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I just know like this one girl, Lindsay Jackson Taylor, she just came back from Alaska, and she kept saying how she climbed mountains holding a camera, she crossed rivers. She hadn't done that before, so the director trusted her, and she did it. So I think it's important to I can give you her contact, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's a start, and just giving people the opportunities, because sometimes they have never done it, but they have the ability.
Oh, absolutely. And to be fair, there's often situations where it is a life or death outcome. You absolutely need the best possible person for the job, but that's not to say there's not room to offer the opportunity and build that skill set. You know, I would really love to see that grow. And actually Taylor works in the same space, so she's actually one of the few female directors in the outdoor industry that's like really established herself. But yeah, that's definitely a hope, both with this program and on a larger scale. We need more women represented in the outdoor production space, absolutely. Anybody else? Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to kind of spread out this question about crew to the entire panel more, because I think it's really important. First of all, you know, as a director, like a lot of the opportunities are directed toward you, and then you have the responsibility to go out. So I also reflect that experience of being expected to really underpay people and, you know, accept this opportunity, this exposure for myself. And also I find that time is really a huge factor in terms of that networking question. When I'm given a project that I need to deliver in 2 weeks, it's much harder to reach out to a broader network and go deeper and find the people who can fit. So I'm just wondering, like, are there ways, and also money in terms of like, say I have an indie project, maybe I'm not being commissioned, but it's indie, but you know, I can be the first one in, last one out. It's my heart and soul, but for someone who shooting it or editing is their bread and butter, it's a lot harder to ask those people to kind of work on faith or work on passion for something that's my vision. And so I was wondering if folks could speak to kind of those obstacles and how can we get more equity for women and people of color below the line as well.
So some of the good initiatives that have come out that I would encourage everyone to have a look at. So obviously you mentioned Free the Bid. So Free the Bid is evolving into Free the Work, and essentially what they're going to do is be platforming below the line talent as well. And so there'll be profiles for everyone, it's totally free to join. They'll plug into their network. I know they just had a big deal go through with a number of people, including obviously Unilever, Procter, and huge brands that they've been working with around the world. So they're one good resource. So, Illuminatrix DOPs is almost entirely female, and there's directors of colour as well, female DOPs of colour as well. And I think it's sharing those resources. So these databases that exist, where people have been vouched for, but we can also then immediately see their work. There's something that needs to exist. There are previously lots of work spaces that allow us to see the work of really prominent maybe male filmmakers. So it's almost taking the responsibility of collecting those databases and sharing them. GIF, which is Girls in Film, which is based in the UK but operate fairly internationally. We've already taken the initiative to do that. So they're the first platform to have short form work produced by women that's available for people to see. So it aggregates people into one space using their following. And then also they've got a list of below the line, they've got a whole, basically a spreadsheet of above and the below the line talent, where you can kind of also put down skills that you're willing to offer in exchange for free. And so you can go and find them on Facebook and then sign up to it. So everyone's information isn't publicly available, but once you sign in and give your own information, that information becomes accessible to you as well. So those are just, I guess, 3 small examples.
We need a database of databases.
Seriously. I do also think, I'm a big advocate, and I always have been, for recommendations. People should be selling all of their friends. If you only have 2 weeks to finish a project and you need to fill certain roles, you're more than likely to hire someone if they're recommended by someone you trust, right? So maybe that's something we can all take away from this is, let's all just brag about our friends a little bit more. There's no harm in it. Yep. We are out of time. We have to please wrap up. So we're all going to be around for the next day and a half or so. If anyone wants to pull anyone aside, chat, we're all available. But thank you so much for coming. What was that? Yeah? You go, girl.
What was films being shown?
So come see it. It's Sunday, I think, at 11. So come see it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
It's our new homeland.